Hi, I'm back. Hey, sorry, I had to take a little bit of time off for myself because it was my birthday and I wanted to go on vacation. Just a little bit of time off for myself, of course. Also, in case you haven't noticed right behind me, I bought this sword while I was gone, and isn't that awesome? I mean, look at that. It looks like something from Lord of the Rings. I mean, I had like literally no choice. It was on sale. I was like, yeah. Oh, by the way, it is real steel. It is like literal real steel. It's super cool. I have no regrets of getting it. Anyway, I'm back. I am here. I am back on the 1001 movie challenge. It's something that I'm definitely a long ways off of getting done. But either way, the show has got to go on. So anyway, Orphans in the Storm. Orphans in the Storm is the final D.W. Griffith movie that I get to review on this whole entire challenge. I mean, thank you, Lord, for making this the last one. I mean, there was no way I was gonna do a D.W. Griffith movie on my birthday. I mean, he made one movie, The Birth of a Nation. I absolutely loathe that movie for more reasons than one. I mean, if that movie was never made, not on his list, then I would consider him to be, an okay type of director. I mean, some of his movies were definitely a step up in movie history. The more I look at them, but the fact is that he made one movie that is super super racist. That it is insanely hard to watch. You just cannot watch any other of his movies with an open mind. I mean, it's like being a fan of Kevin Spacey. I mean, Kevin Spacey made movies like Seven, The Usual Suspects, or even American Beauty. You'd be a very big fan of the guy because he is an insanely good actor. And then you finally found out what he actually did, which I'm not going to say because this is YouTube and it was really messed up. Then when you watch his movies again, it just does not feel like the same anymore. You just have this uncomfortable feeling. That's exactly what I'm feeling right now while watching a D.W. Griffith movie. It is just not the same anymore. So anyway, I'm getting that out of the way. Orphans in the Storm is a movie about two girls. One of them is named Louise. She was born in an insanely rich family, but with things going on, they don't know how they can support a daughter, so they have to give her up for an adoption. So they take her to Notre Dame, leave her there. Hopefully, she can find somebody. And then you have this poor family as well. I cannot remember the names. I don't really think that D.W. Griffith really even gave them names, but they're also giving up their daughter as well, Henrietta, for an adoption at Notre Dame. However, the father looks over, sees Louise, and he cannot bear the fact that he's actually doing this, that he's actually given up his child for an adoption. So he takes Henrietta home and he takes Louise home as well. So basically, these two sisters grow up as sisters. I said that twice, mostly because I can't get the idea out of my head because these are actually sisters in real life. I mean, if you want to give up the illusion that these two are separate sisters, they were born in different families, don't have actual sisters playing them, because if you look at these two girls, I swear to you, they look like twins. They look like that they are definitely related to each other. So that gives away the illusion that these two are separate, that these are separate girls. But anyway, they grow up with each other and they grow up like literal sisters. I mean, they grow up like best friends. They are so close. And then they lose their family during the plague and finally they are alone, but they don't separate. They are still together. And finally, Louise starts losing her eyesight because of some illness or whatever. But Henrietta does not want to give up on her sister, so she tells her that she knows a doctor in Paris, France. That there are some doctors there that can help her with her condition. I mean, in the 1800s, sure, why not? Okay, there are people that can cure blindness. But anyway, she takes her sister and they go to Paris, France. They are going to Paris, France, everybody. Yay! During the French Revolution. Oh boy. Oh boy. And this is where the movie kind of loses traction for me because when it comes to D.W. Griffith, he always wants to put his political stuff out there. Not that it is always correct, of course, but whenever he puts out political stuff, he wants to show the elements on why all of this happens. but he doesn't exactly show all the reasons why it all happens. But anyway, they get to Paris, France. They are dressed fancy, they look nice, and you would think that they would be given the absolute respect. This is Paris, France we're talking about. Before the French Revolution. So, no. Anyway, this really rich aristocrat, this one guy, this sleazy guy, notices Henrietta and he absolutely falls in love and he wants her in well in ways that you can guess why. So he kidnaps her and Louise is all alone. And remember, Louise is blind, and she ends up running into this insanely poor family that would use her attractiveness and her blindness to make money. It's absolutely horrible where Louise ends up as. But with Henrietta, on the other hand, I mean, Henrietta is taken to this extravaganza, this massive party for the super rich and all such, and you just don't feel safe for any of these twins. I mean, when D W Griffith films the aristocrats, the super rich of France, he is saying, yeah, all these rich people here are filled with drunkenness, they are filled with lust, and they are eating all this food that 80% of it is all going to go to waste because there is no way they're going to give this to the poor people on the outside of the gates. And basically they're taunting her, they're mocking her, and it's just a really horrible state. And then she runs into this one guy, the one aristocrat out of the entire group that actually cares about people who are poor. He gets her out of there and starts blossoming into a romance. And that's all I can really say about all that because it kind of fades away in the background. Because one thing about D.W. Griffith is that he wants to put out the French Revolution. He wants to make the bigger picture appear in this movie, of course. But this movie does show a little bit of the twins and how they're trying to find each other. And this movie kind of reminds me of An American Tail in a way, where you notice that they're in the same shot together and they're so close together that you're just saying, "Hey, just turn around. Your sister is right there. Just do that, and she's right there." It has a lot of those moments, and it just kind of keeps you invested in this movie because the only reason I'm really watching this movie is because I want these sisters to get back together. I keep saying that they are twins because seriously, they do look like twins. You should not have used actual sisters to play both of the orphans. But another thing that this movie really points out is the French Revolution, and in my opinion, this is the where the movie has its downfall. Okay, I mean, like 10% of the actual French Revolution is shown in this movie, and although that actual 10% is somewhat accurate. I mean, for what I saw, it was pretty good. I mean, they had one battle in Paris. I mean, they had one battle in Paris. The poor people versus the actual French army versus the aristocrats. The poor people win, and they have this big celebration, and they start bringing up this new government. I mean, that did happen during the French Revolution, and the movie does point out that this new government was not exactly the brightest thing that would ever happen to France. I mean, truth be told, the French Revolution was inspired by the American Revolution, but there is a whole lot more to it than just that. I mean, this new government, it was absolute trash. I mean, if you're going to show how bad this new government is, give a whole lot more details. I mean, they have all these judges, and they are sending people to the guillotine, or guillotine, if you like to call it. I'm gonna call it guillotine for the sake of this video. But when it comes to all these aristocrats, whenever they get called in to be judged, they don't even get a trial. They just say to the guillotine, to the guillotine, to the guillotine, which, truth be told, that did happen during the French Revolution. However, not all aristocrats were sent to the guillotine, because if aristocrats did support the revolution, they did support the new government, then they would have the opportunity to live. Heck, even King Louis XVI claimed that he supported the revolution. He didn't really, and he was discovered, and it didn't end well for him, but still, though, those elements were there. The movie completely ignored that fact. They just said any aristocrat in Paris would have been sentenced to death. Mostly because these poor people just did not like them. Which, truth be told, That is true. If you just did not like somebody, then they would be sent to the guillotine, or they did not support the new government, they'd be sent to the guillotine, or they claim that something is wrong, they get sent to the guillotine. It was an absolute mess. I mean, the movie doesn't shy away showing that the first elements of the French Revolution was a absolute complete mess. However, the movie doesn't really show exactly how deep the French Revolution actually gets. I mean, they do have Robespierre. Robespierre is basically in a few scenes. He doesn't really say anything in the entire movie. They mostly just have notes about him. However, he's a sleazebag. He's a slime ball, which is exactly what Robespierre was. I mean, Robespierre was Adolf Hitler before Adolf Hitler became Adolf Hitler that we know him today. I mean, whenever they show him in this movie, it was mostly in the courtroom scenes, and whenever he just doesn't like somebody, he would look at the judges and he would just do this. Basically means send them to the guillotine. And he sent so many people to the guillotine. However, what the movie fails at is that when they explain after Robespierre himself was sent to the guillotine and his head is rolling around the basket, everything was all fine and dandy. No, it wasn't. As a matter of fact, it will take years, like literal years, before France is all back to normal. I mean, this whole entire movie, it was like after Robespierre died, everything was all fine and dandy. No, Napoleon becomes in charge, and there's like five wars, the five Napoleonic wars, on their hands, and then they would have a new king, and it would just be a repeat of what they were trying to get rid of in the first place. There is so much about the French Revolution that this movie completely ignores. The only thing that I was really focused on in this entire movie were the orphans. If they were to focus on the orphans going through this absolutely terrible crisis, then I would enjoy this movie a whole lot more. You know? But the thing is, they put in the French Revolution. They have a whole lot of scenes that involve the French Revolution. So I'm gonna say to myself, do you do it justice? No, you do not. And as a matter of fact, the French Revolution was an insanely horrible time, and this is a time period when France went through an absolute crisis, and it just got worse from there. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I get a lot of comments whenever I review all these history movies, and that I always get the history wrong. For say, I'm just pointing out there, guys. Whenever I review a history movie, I'm always reviewing the movie. I'm not really reviewing the actual history itself, and that's why I get commented on all the time. For this movie, I'm gonna say that I'm pointing it out there that the orphan story I was definitely focused on, but when it came to the French Revolution, I'm gonna give the details that I know about it in a short term and what they got wrong about it. So I will say Orphans in the Storm is only good whenever it focuses on the orphans, on the girls, and them trying to find each other. That's what I was focused on. When it came to the French Revolution, it was the real reason why I was not focused on this movie. It was the thing that kind of distracted me. I mean, when you're focusing on the French Revolution, if it was in the background with these two girls trying to find each other, I would have been fine. But if you're going to put it in the foreground, give me a little bit more detail on what the French Revolution was in your mind. If you're going to get political, do that. So I will say Orphans in the Storm is a good time when you focus it on the orphans. However, the French Revolution kind of messed it up for me. So I will say Orphans in the Storm, no one's going to hate you if you skip it. So guys, Orphans in the Storm, have you seen it? What did you think of it? It's also based on a play itself in which D W Griffith rewrote the whole thing because of course he did. If you have seen that play, comment it down below and tell me how it was like because I would like to see that instead of this. Also, if you have any different opinions about this movie, comment it down below as well. And also, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share my videos as much as possible so so I can finally get monetized and challenge other reviewers to do the exact same challenge. And I'll see you in the next video.